Hi students, this is Mr. Eckert. We're going to go through two targets here, H3 and H4. Actually, we're really going to go over one because H3, as you can see, says that you should be able to differentiate mutation effects based on amino acid sequences. Really what that means is for each of the three kinds of mutations that you learned in H2, you should be able to show how those affect amino acid sequences. So you should, if you haven't already, you will have practice in class on how to do that. We'll go through a couple of different worksheets that you can actually find in the assignment folder in this unit. So there's really nothing, there's no notes that you will take for this. It's truly a demonstration target, which is what it's saying here on this screen. So we're going to go right to target H4 then, which says that you should be able to explain the differences in the effects between mutations in sex cells versus mutations in body cells. This is a pretty easy target. If you think about it, sex cells, what are sex cells? You should be able to answer that question. Those, of course, are eggs and sperm. And so these mutations can occur in the sex cells themselves or in the tissues that produce those, which of course would be ovaries and testes. So in contrast to those, we're going to start with somatic mutations. A synonym for somatic cells would be body cells. And of course, all the cells in our body contain DNA. There's really very few exceptions. One would be your red blood cells. Red blood cells don't have nuclei, so therefore they don't have DNA. But all the other cells basically have DNA. So there's lots of places for mutations to occur. However, where they occur is going to determine whether or not they can be passed on to offsprings or not. And somatic mutations, because they occur in body cells or non-reproductive cells, they are not passed on to offspring. So in this photograph here, you've got a somatic mutation in a red delicious apple. It almost looks like it's half red delicious, half golden delicious. It's not. It's just got half of it is got a different pigmentation than the normal red color. So if we took the seeds out of this apple, planted them, we're going to get an apple tree that's going to be covered with red delicious apples. They're not going to be half and half as they are here. And that's because this was a somatic mutation. It only affected this one apple, and it's not going to be passed on to its offspring. So that is the key part, the key definition of a somatic mutation. They're not passed on to the offspring. In contrast, germline mutation or germ cell mutations, they will be passed on to offspring. So germ cells, they give rise to gametes. Gametes are eggs and sperm. Again, germ tissue would be testes and ovaries. So a mutation in those can be passed on to the offspring. So what are the effects of these? Well, one effect would be no change at all in the phenotype of the organism. And by phenotype, we mean how the gene is expressed. So a phenotype could be the hair color. In this case, the cat's black. So what would cause no change in the phenotype? Well, maybe the mutation occurs in a stretch of DNA that doesn't have any function. You should remember from the first target that genes consist of exons and introns, and the introns are non-coding parts of the gene. So if you have a mutation in an intron, then that's not going to affect the phenotype. Or maybe the mutation does occur in a protein coding region of the DNA, but it doesn't affect the amino acid sequence. Again, you should remember from target H2, so what we're saying here, okay, now you've got a mutation that is in an exon, but why would it not affect the amino acid sequence? Well, if it's a silent mutation and you still get coding a codon that codes for the same amino acid, then that would still give you the same protein and have no effect on the phenotype. Or it could have a small change in the phenotype, as you see in this cat here, which looks like a house cat. Its ears are bent backwards. That was caused by a mutation, a single mutation in this cat's germ cells. So that caused its ears to curl back slightly. I don't think that's going to affect the overall quality of this cat's life. It's a house cat. It's probably being fed by a human. But if it was a wild cat, then you could argue that it might affect its ability to hear its prey or get away from predators. But we're going to call that a minor effect. The opposite extreme would be what are called lethals. lethal mutations, and those of course cause the death of the organism. So you can have a large change in the phenotype, a lethal effect. You can have kind of a medium change in the phenotype, a small change, or no change whatsoever. And again, I think what you want to focus on here is what does it do to the protein. If we're changing amino acids, we're probably going to change the function of the protein. If there's no change in the amino acid sequence, then you're going to get the same protein, so you're not going to have any effect. So that's it for this target. If you have any questions, please make sure you ask.